All right, so we've got some images here of a basic Elite War map layout. We've got the typical symmetrical layout, and then we've got a layout that's a little wonky and uneven, so we should be prepared for both anyway. So we're going to start this map right here. So the strategy is going to be pretty simple. We are basically going to try and flank the enemy with higher power troops, occupy the majority of the enemy at the midway point, and keep them in battle. So that's the key point, is keep them in battle, because they can't retreat to base if they are in a battle. Physically, they cannot retreat unless they want to spend 500 gold. So basically what's going to happen here is this. In this case, all the troops, we're going to move to 8 or midway point as quickly as possible. Now, we're also going to have 3 or 4 troops hang back. In this case is going to be 5. Just the immediately prior base to the midway point. A few troops are going to hang back. Okay, we've got defenders at our base, that's a given. So the enemy also will now travel to the midway point like they normally do. When they are at the base prior to the midway point, we're going to watch their travels. When they get halfway to the midway point, okay, hopefully what's going to happen here is this. So the troops are going to, all our troops are going to continue to move to 8 and meet them at the same time. R3, R4, higher powered troops, those guys are going to move a little faster than the rest of our army. So ideally, we'd want them to be at the midway point before our regular armies. When the enemy is traveling to the midway point and they are midway to reaching the midway point from the base prior, we want the R3, R4s, the higher power troops that have already reached the base to immediately move to the next base, and this will be subject to command because each map is different. So they are going to avoid the major battle that's about to happen in the midway point. Our regular armies are going to arrive to meet the enemy forces and start the battle. Now, there are going to be a few troops that are going to hang back at 5. Those troops I will also command to move to the midway point when the enemy reaches halfway from their base prior to the midway point to the midway point. What this is going to do is going to allow us to start the battle up. The troops over here at 5 that I commanded, the 3 or 4 that hang back, I command those guys to move at a certain time to revitalize the front line. So what I want to do is keep the enemy in battle, because we know they cannot actually retreat without spending gold if they are in the middle of an actual battle. So while that battle lengthens and continues, R5 has hopefully traveled past the major battle by that point, and they can then flank the enemy base, choosing the path with the least amount of targets. So this will require at least 3 or 4 really strong R4, R3 troops to basically move in on the base and make substantial progress, while the rest of us are keeping the enemy occupied at base number 8, which is great because even our low power troops will have a gigantic supporting role at revitalizing the line and just keeping the fight going. So that's strategy number 1. The non-ideal map here, where it's a more direct travel, you can't really get to the base quickly. Basically, we're going to do the same thing. Everyone rushes to 14. However, when we get to 11 here, that's where R3, R4, higher power troops, they're going to travel north. They're going to take a little detour, and they're going to hang out at the midway point base above the midway point. In this case, would be number 15 is what it looks like. So our high power troops are up there, Everyone's going to meet in the middle. In this case, meanwhile, a few troops hang back at base 11. When the enemy gets halfway to the midway point, we will deploy troops from base 11 to 14. That will revitalize the front line, keep that battle going so they can't recall. R3, R4, higher power troops, they are above us here, and they're going to travel at a higher speed to get to enemy base as fast as possible. So it also may be helpful for R3, R4 higher power troops to have an additional commander, Geezer, Elena, whoever might be present in that battle, to command those troops to move as you see fit. It may or may not be helpful or necessary, just a suggestion. However, we just really need to occupy enemy troops and keep the battle going as long as possible for the sneak attack to work. And obviously we're going to need quite a bit of power headed towards that enemy base. So basically, even the little guy plays a role if people are dying off. Another strategy is we keep people at base number 2, for instance, and base number 5, maybe just 1 or 2 at base number 2. So while number 5 base, as soon as they move to revitalize the line at the midway point, troops number 2 at base number 2 will also move to 5. So by the time 5 gets to midway point to revitalize the line, the troops from 2 that went to 5 can then go to the midway point, revitalize the line again. So we're just, extending the battle. So really, timing is everything here. And obviously, this is going to rely on a huge amount of compliance. Does it leave our base defense a little bit open? Maybe, depending on how many players are active. But basically, the strategy relies on extending the battle at the midway point so the enemy cannot return to base. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. It is highly thought out. Whether or not we can execute that, I don't know if everyone will listen properly. If they did, it would be really cool. Anyway, let me know what you think.